It looks like we've got about 15 more first-party Nintendo Switch games before the next Nintendo Switch comes out. Pegged for a late 2024 launch, if we look at the calendar, past precedent, and what Nintendo already has announced, I'm betting 15 games before everything becomes Switch 2. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce, and based on some reliable rumors, based on what we've heard, based on what hasn't happened, and based on what has happened, this is the list of what I think will be the 15 final first-party games in the Nintendo Switch era before we move to their next system. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I've got any wrong or missed any or any you want to add, but it starts with Pikmin 4 in July 2023, and it's going to end in October 2024 with a new 3D Mario. Now that's kind of going to be our barriers, and then we'll go in the middle there. I think 3D Mario is going to be the launch title. We've already heard plenty of rumors about that, and it seems like Nintendo has been cooking for 7 years just for this moment. It's a great game to launch a new system with. You launch The Last of Us Zelda, launch this one with Mario. I think it'll happen. I don't know that it'll be Odyssey 2. I think after 7 years, that's enough time to start something totally different, but this video is not about Mario 3D Switch 2 version. It's about, in October, Detective Pikachu returns. The graphics look very antiquated, but the game and the storyline do have charm and are fun. Also, in October, we have Mario Wonder. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a creative, quirky take on Mario that reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and it's the first big change for 2D Mario in like a decade. 2 major Nintendo releases in October, followed up by 2 more in November. WarioWare Move It is your smaller title, and Mario RPG is your bigger title, bringing back a fan favorite in a remastered, remade capacity. We'll have to see how many differences and nuances there are, but that game should sell incredibly well. Those are the 4 we know about, and then we will go into 2024 with a blank slate, but I think we can accurately predict and guess most of them. I think in January, we're going to see Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. That feels like a great title to start the year off. It's not a big risky title. It is a port title. It should be pretty easy to accomplish and cheap to make, and we can just push that out in January and say, hey, we got a nice seller. Remember, they have used January for Mario before when they brought New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe Switch version over to the Switch in January. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, being a 3DS game, feels like a nice fit for the first month of 2024. Now, I think they'll skip February, although they could use February for a GameCube launch month. Perhaps the F-Zero GX rumor comes to fruition, or Metroid Prime 2 or 3 get added. I don't really count those as major first-party releases, even if they do hit store shelves eventually. Instead, I'll move us to March with the Princess Peach Untitled game. I have a feeling, since they showed that off so early, and since it does appear to be a mostly 2D title, that it's probably close to ready. It doesn't seem like it's a massive sprawling world that's going to take years more to develop, and I think early year again is a smart pick for Peach. Nintendo loves to use the March timeframe for games like Kirby, and yes, Peach is also pink, but I do feel like together they kind of form more of a younger, more casual approach to launching a Switch game, and I think that's perfect for March. Now from here, nothing has been shown, right? We don't know anything, but again, I think we can make really informed guesses. In late March, I bet we get a new Fire Emblem remake title or a remastered title. We've heard about the genealogy of the Holy War coming back. Fire Emblem has performed incredibly well on Switch, and porting something over with some buffed graphics feels like a nice, easy cash-in and another way to supplement an early year bum rush for all the people that picked up new Switches and have gift cards, etc. to spend. Plus, Nintendo does like to use the early part of their year to get more secondary and tertiary franchises out of the way. But they come back in April with my prediction of a new Pokemon title. Now, this is a bit more in the air after the Pokemon Presents put nothing new forth. I don't know. I can't see Nintendo really going a whole year without a Pokemon title, even though I expect this to be Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It could be a remastered, remade, retwisted version of a past game, or it could be a brand new one, but I feel like April is a good time to get back in the Pokemon groove. It lets the DLC live in September and probably December or January, maybe even February has that month to itself, and then in April we can say, hey, another new Pokemon. The reason I'm putting Pokemon in April and not later in the year is because I do not believe it'll be a massive Pokemon title. We've heard rumors of a black-white remake, but it seems like Let's Go and Legends and Mainline are on hiatus until we do get a new system, and they really want to help bolster sales there. Makes logical sense. I'm all for it. Then in May, we have the first really big Switch game of 2024, which I believe will be the new Donkey Kong title. You cannot tell me that we're going to go an entire generation without DK, especially not after Nintendo and Miyamoto have emphasized Donkey Kong so much as of late. Seth Rogen voiced him and he had a substantial role in the Mario movie. We've heard about the potential for a spin-off story or more DK in the film universe. We know that they're opening a DK land at Universal Studios Japan in 2024, and eventually it'll be brought over to the States as well. DK is going to get a lot of marketing buzz. You can't not have a game. And I think Donkey Kong is a franchise, an IP, a character that can help anchor a year that might otherwise feel a little bit slow to get started. Right, Nintendo is going to save their big guns like 3D Mario 2 for the Switch 2. But early in the year, in May, this is a nice slot, and I do think Donkey Kong can still push some decent numbers. Not Mario numbers, but really solid numbers, and at the very least, far superior to what it saw, unfortunately, on the Wii U. That's one of my most anticipated Switch games remaining, and I do think it comes to fruition. I bet we see it at the September Direct, or possibly the February Direct, depending on how much they have to show. We then go into June, and this is Nintendo's favorite time of the year to release Mario Sports. I think Mario Baseball is the one to add to the list. We've checked off golf, tennis, and soccer. It's baseball time. We've heard rumors of Mario Baseball. They haven't made one in a long time, and it seems like a nice Mario cash-in to give some more Mario oomph in a year where you're trying to amp people up, continue to build off the momentum of the Mario movie, Mario Bros. Wonder, Mario RPG. It's the Mario console. Mario Baseball ain't on Switch. Now it is. July is where I'm going to get a bit risky. I think July is when we see Metroid Prime 4. Now, some of you may have been expecting Metroid Prime 4 to pop up in the March or April slot, but I think Nintendo will want to hold Metroid Prime 4 until they're ready to show Nintendo Switch 2. The reason I'm slotting this in July is because Nintendo has used July before for some pretty large first-party exclusives. I'm not trying to compare Metroid Prime 4 to Pikmin 4, although they both do have 4s, but Pikmin 4 launched in July and has seen great success. I think July is a nice time frame for Nintendo to get the game out before the Switch 2 is out, so they keep their promise of this is a Switch 1 game, don't worry. But if they unveil the Switch 2 at the June Summer Games E3 timeframe, they can then show off Metroid Prime 4 for the first time on Switch 2 and tantalize you. I'm sure Metroid Prime 4 will get shown off at, say, the early year Direct next year, but then they can re-show it off and really make the difference established for what a Switch 2 can do for a game like Metroid Prime 4, and you can see the better graphics, the better performance, and know that, yeah, MP4 is coming to Switch first, but it'll ultimately be best to play on Switch 2. And depending on how friendly the backwards compatibility situation works out, these game releases are basically Switch 2 releases, at least sort of in the broader sense. So July is the last huge heavy hitter for Nintendo. May DK, July Metroid. I think that's a great pairing, and I think it makes it a really strong summer to keep Nintendo rolling. They're not going to go quietly into transition. No, they've already established that they're really concerned with keeping momentum as they move from one generation and one console to the next. This is how you do it. But it doesn't stop there, because in August, I bet we get a little bit of a slowdown with Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Zelda loves to have an appearance each and every year. Nintendo has made that clear as of late, and this is the perfect year to finally drop these two titles. Players will still be excited for them, and again, it's not a lot of skin off Nintendo's back to put these both out. I think the biggest question is how much more work have they done since the HD versions, and how much do they end up charging for these? I fully expect them to be two separate packages, although I would hope Nintendo would use the $50 price point instead of the $60 price point. I think these will be less work done than Skyward Sword, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It's been a long while since these were reported to be done and ready. Maybe they are done and ready, but I think Nintendo will cash in 2024 in August, a month where they do like to either have not much or maybe something smaller. That brings us to September, which I think we'll see a new Mario Party. I think Mario Party is a great closer for Switch 1 and an awesome beginner for Switch 2. You don't have to dedicate this as a Switch 2 game, but you don't have to make it part of the launch lineup, but you can release a new Mario Party, and then you have a game that can sell plentiful on both systems. We've seen Mario Party succeed bringing back old boards, trying out new ideas, and another Mario Party can do just as well. They seem resistant to make DLC, and at this point, I don't know that we'll ever get new boards for Mario Party Superstars. Instead, it might seem like we'll get a sequel that can play on both Switch 1 and Switch 2 and be sort of the multiplayer fun fest at the onset of the next generation. I think Mario Party right at the tail end and before the beginning is a perfect gap crosser, and I think it's a fantastic title that appeals to a wide range, similar to something like Mario Kart, but I don't believe there will be a new Mario Kart ready for launch, hence why I'm picking Mario Party as sort of a nice holiday, big multiplayer title, and a way to show like, hey, we still love Switch 1, and we're really trying to prove that we're not leaving those players behind. They're going to continue to release games, support games, and show a strong show of faith that, hey, we will continue to make more games. And I don't think that October, which is when I predict the Switch 2 will launch, is the end of the Switch 1 releases. I just think it's the end of the bigger Switch 1 releases. We still could have more ports, we still could have more smaller games, we could have some maybe oddball franchises that didn't get a full dedicated title during the Switch's main run, but I think October then sees Mario 3D New. I know a lot of people want to call it Odyssey 2, but I'll call it New because I do believe after 7-8 years, it's time for something new. This isn't like Galaxy 1, where we had, a couple years and then Galaxy 2 is out. That would have made sense if Mario Odyssey 2 dropped in 2020 or 2021, but this many years later, it feels like, hey, it's time for a new mechanic, a new idea, and something that truly takes advantage of the technology that Nintendo is putting forth into their new console. We saw Nintendo abandon Flood after one game. I think it's fair to say they could abandon Cappy after one game. No shade to Cappy, I think that's a fantastic idea, and it worked wonderfully in Mario Odyssey, but I think the Mario team is very creative, and based on how they were experimenting with Bowser's Fury in the Mario 3D World package, perhaps they are going more open world, maybe even more open world than Odyssey, and maybe rather than an open world game based on the structure of Odyssey, now they have something that they can create wholly fresh, wholly new, and take true advantage of the new power of Switch 2. I think given that amount of processing power, the Mario team can do magnificent work. The 3D team is one of their strongest, if not their strongest, and I do believe they'll bring greatness. And I pick October instead of November because we've heard rumors that maybe September, October is the launch time, and I think Nintendo likes to be kind of quirky and get out ahead of the holiday season. Something tells me that they're going to have a very big Switch 2 launch, and so they could have more games that they want to pepper in November, in December, maybe focus on Mario at launch so not to burn, too many cartridges right off the bat, but then follow up in the subsequent months can launch massive Switch 2 games to have an absolutely huge launch window and push as many new consoles as humanly possible. They're waiting till 2024. They're apparently using an LCD screen. They want to make this thing as aggressive as possible, and they want to have as much stock as possible. So they're going to need software to move that stock. Mario's the first kingpin. Where else do they go from there? I don't think Mario Kart will be ready, especially since we're just wrapping up DLC for Mario Kart 8. Although that does give us a year without Mario Kart, and maybe that could happen. I think Mario Party could easily be a cross-gen type title, or maybe it does release on Switch 2 by itself. And then there's a whole plethora of different ideas. There's new IP, there's all sorts of things like a 2D Zelda, potentially, but I think early on, they will focus on showing off the power and the performance of the new system. That's why I've got Metroid and Mario launching very close with the new system, as I think those will be the two showpiece titles, and perhaps they have some interesting third-party partnerships like a Monster Hunter Rise that they can get on board for launch to make things extra exciting. Where they go from there for Nintendo, I hope we can't predict. I hope that going forward into the Switch 2 era, given the extreme leap for Nintendo, that we do see new ideas. We do see new things being brought forth. There will be plenty of sequels and follow-ups for sure, but hey, this is an opportunity to reset and at least try new again. You have a massive install base, so give it a go. I think ARMS does way better in 2023 than it did in 2017 because there's much more of an install base. So try it out. It's fine if it flames out. You have plenty of other titles and plenty of other tries, but with 130 million Switch players and a bunch of Switch 2 new adopters, I hope we can't quite predict where Nintendo will go after October. But those are my predictions for the next 15 Nintendo Switch games between Pikmin 4 and Mario 3D launching with Nintendo Switch 2. I think that would still be a pretty fire year. I think it would be a very fun closing year and would feel unlike the typical last year of the doldrums that many other consoles see as their sunset before a new release. You'd have big stuff like Princess Peach and Donkey Kong and Metroid Prime 4 all leading up to a Switch 2 launch, which provides you with maybe Nintendo's biggest launch since Tears of the Kingdom. They really have found a way to load up the back end of the Switch's life cycle, and I'm very much here for it. But let me know your take on this list of games. If you think I'm spot on or you think I missed something up, where would you insert another Switch game, or which one do you think is least likely to come? I feel like this is a pretty safe list of guesses, And I bet you 90% of these games happen. Let me know your take, though. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. And until next time, SwitchForce out.